It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Audley Stephenson, the National Basketball League of Canada's Deputy Commissioner. How are you doing today?
It's good, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in professional sports?
I think it's just something that, in my case, I think it just sort of happened. I had the privilege of just sort of being around the league in the early seasons. I've always been a basketball fan, so I knew I wanted to be affiliated with basketball. So when, as a basketball fan, to hear that a brand new league is starting up, it just sort of created an opportunity. And I think it opens up doors, but I certainly wouldn't say that was the plan and I knew this is what I was going to do. In fact, when I kind of look at sort of my professional background, I've done a bunch of different things. And they all have been sports related. So I think it's one of those things where the opportunity presented itself. It was in line with things that I was interested in, and it just made sense. So there we go. And that's why we're here.
How did the love of the game of basketball get to you to become the Canadian Basketball League's Deputy Commissioner?
Again, it was, I've always appreciated the sport. I grew up watching the sport as a child. I played it. And an opportunity presented itself. And so it made sense to kind of marry the two together. I think it was, again, I just think it was just sort of an opportunity more than anything else. It wasn't a plan, but certainly when you sort of piece everything together, it made sense for me.
I saw that you had a podcast called Hoop Talk Nation. Can you talk about that and what some of the things you talked about on it was?
Yeah, that's an old podcast. I did Hoop Talk Nation back in 2016. I did it for about a year. It was a basketball podcast. Throughout my professional career, I've always been involved with podcasts. The one I currently have one called the Auduacious Living Podcast. That probably started just during COVID, and that's more of a self-development, personal development sort of podcast, teaching about audaciousness and boldness. But yeah, Hoops Talk Nation was a basketball podcast that have NBA players and people affiliated with the sport. But that's probably 4 years old. That podcast. Yeah.
What was it like whenever you started the Audacious Media, a modern day Bleacher Report?
The Audacious Media. You mean my podcast?
Yes.
Or are you talking about the Audman Media?
Audman Media.
Okay, yeah. So again, that was something that I did years ago. Like I said, in my past, I've done lots of different stuff. And that was just, again, I was creating basketball content. And I think I started the Audman Media about like 2015. I guess in my LinkedIn profile, looking up that stuff, that's old stuff. We shut that down a little while ago just to focus on NBL Canada.
What can you talk about getting the NBA Canada League basketball and what some of your roles and responsibilities are?
Sorry, talk about getting. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
What was it like getting the first time to work with Canada Basketball League?
Again, when you're a fan of the sport and you appreciate the sport and you're excited to be around it, it's seen as a great opportunity, and I think those chances and those opportunities don't come along every day. So, I was excited to be around it. It was something I had never dreamed of doing. So when I had the opportunity, again, I just saw it as a really good opportunity, and I just ran with it.
What are some of the roles as the Director of Publications for the Canadian Basketball League?
The the director of publication. But we don't have our league doesn't have a director of publications. And I used to do some work with the league. Again, that was a few years ago, back in like 2015, 2016, and that was it's certainly helping create content, social media, things of that nature.
Who are some of the teams that are in your league?
Well, if you visit our website, nblcanada.ca, I mean, all our teams are listed there. We've got the Halifax Hurricanes, the Moncton Magic, the Windsor Express, the London Lightning, Sudbury Five, the St. John's Edge. They're all listed on our website, absolutely. But yeah, those are there are 8 teams in our league.
What is it like being the deputy commissioner?
Again, it's a privilege to be able to do a job like this, something I'm appreciative of. And so for myself, it's an opportunity more than anything else.
I saw that obviously with the Canadian Basketball League, it's kind of like the NBA. Can you talk about some of the similarities and differences between the Canadian Basketball League versus the NBA?
Well, we're certainly, NBA is, the top of the level, right? Like, if you look at, if you rank basketball leagues across the world, the NBA is at the top. We've got the greatest revenue, arguably the greatest players. And so we certainly don't compare in that regard. Oftentimes you'll see a lot of players that sort of come out, top college players that maybe aren't at the NBA level, but that don't want to go overseas, because there's lots of leagues overseas. When take COVID out of the equation, there's lots of leagues overseas. So as a league, we provide an opportunity for young players to pursue their dreams.
Do you see the Canadian Basketball League kind of being more of a filler into the NBA?
Not necessarily. I think there's a lots of different pathways to get to the NBA. That league has no problem with recruitment or scouting or anything of that nature. Have we had players in our league who've gone to the NBA? Yeah, they certainly have been, but I wouldn't say that we're necessarily designed that way. I think we're sort of a level 1 league that provides an opportunity for young players to pursue their dreams. We're certainly the top league here in Canada. We recognize that. I think throughout the years, different leagues have kind of popped up and they've come and gone, what have you. But we're very comfortable with what the product we have. We don't necessarily look to compare ourselves to the NBA.
Of course, now that high school players have more options to go to the NBA G League and vice versa, do you see you have more high school players to be like, let me just go to Canada's basketball league?
I mean, we've had a couple actually, and perhaps that might be more of a pipeline. But the reality is that at the end of the day, you're playing. These are grown professional men in our league, and so I would imagine that unless you're a really, really special high school student, that you'll have a tough time managing, because you're often instances. There are grown men in a league that have been professional, 8, 9, 10 years, right? So,
who are some of the people that have played in your Canadian Basketball League that people may know?
We've had Glenn Big Baby Davis that played in our league a couple years ago. His team won. He played for the St. John's Edge. They had gone to the finals. Unfortunately, had injury problems and didn't win. They lost to the Moncton Magic. We also had a couple years ago Carl English, who was a top Canadian player, played internationally for years. He actually came back to Newfoundland and played in his home country for the first time, and then his jersey was eventually retired. So yeah, I think it creates a lot of opportunities, especially for Canadian players, for an opportunity to come in. A guy like Junior Cadogan, he played at Marquette in college, and then he went overseas for a bit, and then came to Canada. He's played on the Canadian national team as well. So yeah, there's just a bunch of different players that have come through our league.
What is something that you learned now that you didn't know before becoming the deputy commissioner?
it's an ongoing, you're learning every day, right? It's an ongoing process. It doesn't just happen. Things change. The landscape changed. Certainly COVID has changed how we do things. And so we've had to pivot and adjust. And so right now we're not playing. And I think one thing that we've learned one thing I've learned personally is that, basketball is a very big part of what I've done throughout the years, and I miss it terribly, but I know it'll come back soon.
Of course, with y'all not playing due to COVID, how has that impacted y'all's league, and have you done more promotions since then to get your league out there?
Well, I mean, how it's impacted is we can't play. That's really what it comes down to. But I think a lot of leagues are in that very same boat. We just can't play, right? So what we've been doing is we've just been standing pat and waiting. It's one thing to put yourself out there, but if we don't have a clear direction when we play, it's kind of difficult. So we've just been kind of holding back and waiting to see sort of, when we have a clear indication when we'll be able to play again. But once we know that, yeah, we'll be out there again like we always have been.
What advice would you give somebody looking to work in professional sports as a deputy commissioner or just work in professional sports?
Well, I mean, I can't say, specifically, here's how you become a deputy commissioner or anything like that. But what I can say is that it takes us a lot of hard work. You got to stay humble or be passionate about what you do and really be bold and audacious and go after what you want. Asking lots of questions, learning from people. There's a lot of people in the industry that are more than happy to share insights and provide knowledge and answer questions and give advice. But I think the most important thing to know, there isn't just kind of one pathway to get to where you want to go. And sometimes you take different pathways, take multiple journeys, multiple attempts, if you will. So you just got to work hard and stay with it.
That's wonderful. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with, of course, the Canadian Basketball League app?
Well, NBLCanada.ca is the website. That's where you can learn all about the league. Like I said, we're waiting to get a better sense of when we'll start playing again. And then, like I said, we'll be out there on COVID. We'll be out there after COVID, rather. As for connecting with myself, I'm at the Audman, THEAUDMAN. On Instagram, Twitter. By all means, you can reach out, connect with me, and sure, that's where I'm at.
Thank you again, Audley, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
All right, thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brain, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.